Very quickly, with respect to your question, the way you wanted me to talk about, I think I'll first of all start by saying that Bangladesh, many of you may be aware, has achieved tremendous socio-economic transformation since we became independent in 1971. We had a per capita income of $134. Currently, it is $2,800 per capita, which is higher than India and Pakistan. Our GDP is growing at a very high rate. We have the 35th largest economy in the world currently. But, in terms of many other socioeconomic indicators, Bangladesh has been doing very well and commendably, in fact, compared to countries in similar situations, and particularly in South Asian region. However, that's only one side of the story. The other side of the story is in that, in terms of democracy, in terms of electoral democracy, in particular, human rights, governance, Bangladesh has been doing miserably compared to most other countries that I mentioned. And in South Asian context, and also particularly in terms of corruption index and governance indices. Bangladesh in South Asia, either the lowest or the second or third lowest in South Asia, only after Afghanistan and Pakistan. So this is a kind of a contrasting scenario. But the cost of this, the deficit in performance in governance, democracy, human rights, and justice, and civil society space, and so on, is that we have come to a state where people's mandate, which is the subject of today's session, has become the victim of what I call a zero-sum game of politics in Bangladesh. The devil is in politics, the angel could potentially be in politics. Now, this zero-sum game of politics basically means that you have to stay in power. Winning is the only option, and staying in power is the only option. Losing an election is not an acceptable thing. So you try to manipulate the institutions and laws and processes to ensure this. And this has, of course, I just also like to mention in a minute that it is also part of the legacy of 1975, when the father of the nation was brutally killed with his family. And in the context of that brutal killing, what has happened is that the polarization that you mentioned, Samina, has actually originated. One side of this, one of the major political parties, two major political parties, is considered to be the victim of the tragedy. The other is the kind of a gainer or beneficiary of that strategy, of the tragedy. So starting from there, what has happened is that there has been a contestation in political scenario of Bangladesh. One that has at least until recently have followed a strategy of physically destroying the opponent, and the other has followed the strategy of politically destroying the opponent. So it's one has failed. The physical annihilation strategy has failed, unfortunately, although it has left a very, very significant impact in the political context of Bangladesh. And the other has won, and that's the kind of the party that won the 2024 7th January election. And you mentioned that the contested election, it's not contested election. We have come to state that it cannot be, in fact, called an election. It's a selection. It's basically that, the ruling party ensures that as I said, they manipulate not only the election and the electional campaign, the period of election campaign and so on, maybe, but the whole tenure is actually kind of, is used in a manner that the political space, governance space is totally monopolized, so that the political opponents are not able to kind of do their political activism, and the level playing field is totally destroyed. It's not to suggest that it's only the kind of, the result of the manipulation of the party in power, but it's also failure of the party in outside power, because they have not been able to politically strategize what they have suffered in the 2009 election, which was one of the best elections that we have ever had, and internationally and nationally recognized. The setback they suffered when they lost the election they were so kind of, demoralized, or, they considered themselves politically dysfunctional, that they failed to recover from the shock, and this combined with the political manipulation of the ruling party. So what we have had in 2007 January 2024 7 January election is actually, I should also mention one particular point before I'm getting too late and taking too long. We had in Bangladesh a very innovative system of neutral, non-partisan caretaker government for the election time government for 3 months, which was introduced through a national consensus in the wake of civil society movement, which was in sync with the political actors, although they were not very enthusiastic in that. But one was very strongly supportive of this, the other was strongly against it. But civil society managed to bring them together to the table, and the caretaker system was introduced in the constitution. But no sooner that it started to give good results, we had several rounds of successful elections where we saw the kind of ruling party defeated very conveniently by the opposition party when free and fair election took place. And Bangladesh has a good tradition of negative votes. People send the political parties to power, but they don't take a month or so to kind of start protesting against them. So that's the game that we have seen taking place when the caretaker system was in place. But so soon after the system started to operate, the BNP actually, which was reluctant to accept the caretaker system, it benefited from it eventually, but they started to manipulate the caretaker system itself by for example, increasing the retirement age of the Chief Justice so that the individual of their choice could become the head of the caretaker government after the end of the regime period. So those are the kind of things. I don't want to go into much of details. And the system became controversial, and eventually the current ruling party, which was very strongly in favor of the caretaker government, and they benefited most, and particularly 2009 election, after coming to power, they actually abolished the caretaker system of government and established the election under the ruling party. So as a result of which, what has happened is the agenda of staying in power has been successfully realized. And in that process, not only 2024 election, the 2014 and 19 election also was the same, more or less. So in that process, the Election Commission, the laws, and particularly the law enforcement agencies and the administration who play a very significant role in the elections together with the Election Commission, all of them have orchestrated, jointly worked together to ensure that the ruling party stays in power and the opposition party stays outside the election. So, and do not take part in the election. In the process, the ruling party have also been successful in co-opting the potential political third forces, so that they become part of the whole system. So as a result of which, voting, the word election became actually dysfunctional. Meaningless in Bangladesh context, unfortunately, at least in the context that we have currently. So, and in the whole process, what has happened is that we have a extremely monopolistic control of the political and governance space, and hence the scope of an unaccountable use of absolute power has widened. In the midst of everything, the civil rights and political rights, civil society space, media space have been extremely under stress. And as a result of which, as I said at the beginning, some of the results of performance of Bangladesh in some of the indicators like human rights, labor rights, or media freedom, etc. Bangladesh has been doing, unfortunately, very poorly. So I would finish by saying that if we look forward, as you're asking, trying to answer to your second question, as we look forward, I think we have some kind of a political stability because the opposition party has become absolutely non-factor. Almost, I shouldn't say absolutely, but nearly absolutely non-factor. They are kind of raising some voices and noises, but they don't make much sense. because this combines with the political pressure of the our governance and administrative pressure, and also judicial and other institutions are being used for a kind of politically neutralizing them or making them dysfunctional. So you have some kind of a political stability, which would be accompanied most possibly, as I can see, by some kind of a policy continuity, meaning whatever policies the current government had in the previous three periods. This is the fourth time they are in power. So the policy continuity will be there. Their power base has been extremely reinforced, although that power base has got nothing to do with the people. The power base is consisting of the business lobbies, of the bureaucracy, of the law enforcement agencies and other institutions, state institutions who were totally politicized and monopolized under political control.
Thank you so much.
So that is the power base. I'll finish in a moment. We'll also have most possibly international support of key actors, including regional actors, because there is a kind of an alliance, or the key regional powers and international powers have something in common, although they are kind of in a sort of a competition, and at least in the surface,